I mean, honestly, it's not ideal. It's less than ideal. It wasn't ideal to start with, even in September. With the new rules about the kids having to wear masks, it's been an extra challenge. Especially with my grade 2 students, they are having difficulty understanding the concept of putting it on every time they want to leave the classroom. Especially because they're like, well, it's just my locker. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going. But they don't understand that, well, your locker's in the hallway and you have to put it on. It's a lot of policing on our side. And honestly, like, I'm all for the kids being in school. That's fine. Like, I'll support it because, they need to be there. But I was not a fan of the idea of these kids having their masks on. And honestly, I don't see the difference, especially with the younger grades, because we're not in close contact with them outside of the classroom. We're in close contact with them inside of the classroom. There's not much of a difference there. And even when they put it on outside of the classroom, they're having difficulty as to where exactly the mask goes, if you catch my drift.
For sure.
Some of them will have it down here, some of them will have it just over the mouth, not the nose. And it's okay because they're young and they're still learning. And we've done the whole model, like we've modeled how to do it, we've showed videos, but it's still difficult for them to grasp. And that doesn't disappoint me at all. That's actually what I expected. So it's just one more thing for us to manage as teachers. So, before this, like, I would say before the new year and going back after the holidays, um, I felt like I was down to about a 50% capacity in teaching time because the other 50% was taken up with, like, following protocols and rules and hand washing. And now that's just eating away even more at what I have to do.
And the stress levels, I mean, for you, for your colleagues, just to keep on top of this, I mean, I can assume you need a break, right? Like you are coming off from the Christmas break, but already this is so tough on you.
It is, and with there was a quite a wave of cases when we came back in January. The case numbers was really up there. And then it just recently, I think just this week, suddenly we're starting to see like a little bit of a dip, and that's awesome. That's great. But when this whole idea of taking away spring break started, I I immediately got on the phone with my union because I was like, no, like they cannot do this to us. Um, what's interesting is that we think about taking away spring break like it's just the logical sequence of events, but it is not. When you take away spring break, you're taking away time from teachers who need this time to like recuperate and be able to go back in for that home stretch from March to the end of June. That's the first thing. The other thing is those students need it. I mean, my winter time in schools is very different from the rest of the year. That month of January, February is very intense in schools. It's the end of a semester of an étape of a term. It's parent teacher nights. It's the kids adjusting to switching from one part of the curriculum to the other because we kind of split it up. And it's usually around this time that we're going on to like part B of the curriculum, which is a bit more tasking and demanding. There are a lot of adjustments and everything from the coming in from outside and the whole process and dealing with winter and gear and all of that, not just for the adults but for the kids as well. All of that plays a role. And so when March break hits, we're all pretty much running on empty in terms of students and teachers. And I know for high school, they need it too. Like, and I'm not saying they as in teachers, I'm saying they as in students, because I have people in my family who are high school students and they need it too. Like they're pretty much exhausted as well by the time spring break hits. And so I couldn't imagine having to say, well, you know what, spring break is going to become like regular school days or Zoom days because already with grade 2s, and I've explained this before, grade 2 students and even grade 4 students have difficulty just sitting there for endless hours in front of their computer watching you talk. It is not the same as being in class. It's not the same dynamic and it's not the same um, um, context in terms of how much they can move. and what they're doing. Like you can vary the activities much easier in a classroom setting than you can with Zoom. You know, I don't care how many breakout rooms you make. It's just not doable. It's not the same. It's doable, but it's not the same, and it doesn't engage them as much. And another aspect of all of this that had me kind of, you know, dissatisfied with the idea of taking away spring break is because us teachers, our union has been in negotiations with the government for almost a year now, and we're not going anywhere with these negotiations. It is not advancing, it's not going anywhere. There's been a mediator called in, mediation has not yielded any results. And so we're still at a standstill almost a year in. So we're without like what they call the convention nationale, like the convention collective, our contract has expired already, and we're still negotiating a new one. And they're not moving on their part, and we have some minimum demands too. And I find it really interesting that you are actually thinking of taking away spring break when you're not even able to sit down and discuss things with us. So that's one of the reasons why I disagreed. And I could give you more details as to what's going on in terms of negotiations, but that's probably a topic for another time if you're, you know.
For sure, totally separate, totally different story, but important nonetheless. But I want to know from you because in that sense, the minister today says yes, we will keep spring break. So, of course, looking at somebody like you who's under this stress, who's on the front lines dealing with the children, you need this break, and I can see that, and that's why I thought you would be the best person to talk to. But on the other hand, working on the front line, does it make you at all worried in the sense that you don't know where the kids are going to go in their week off? They might take off, they might not. Of course, with the whole quarantine issues, I can assume kids won't go away with their parents, but just going to other regions or even getting together with other classmates and not knowing, right, the spread, does that worry you at all?
Well, I'm gonna answer this in a different way. We lived this stress those first 2 to 3 weeks when we came back from the holidays. There wasn't a teacher around who was stressed and freaking out on the inside. See them. We were welcoming. We kind of like said, "Oh, I've missed you. I'm so happy you're back." But on the inside, there wasn't a teacher who wasn't stressed about where have you been during those 2 to 3 weeks. Who have you seen? What have you done? We were all going through that stress in our own way. Um, and we kind of, it's unfortunate to say this, but we've kind of gotten used to being thrown in with like the direction of, well, you deal with it whatever way you want to deal with it, kind of thing. Like we deal with our own stress whichever way we see fit. And it's kind of sad to say it, but I mean, we, like I said, we went through this stress when we came back from the holidays. Honestly, with the fact that now we're imposing any international travel, whoever comes back to quarantine, and all of that, with what Trudeau said last week, it kind of it kind of alleviates the pressure a little bit. But there's still the issue of those who are meeting up in like cottages, or like renting out an Airbnb and meeting up over there, or whatever it is. Like they'll find a way. So yes, that stress is there. It is not a new stress. Like we've been living this every time there's been a holiday that there's like a few days off school. We've been going through the whole process of, oh my God, I'm going back in the classroom. I don't know where they've been, and I don't know how that's going to affect me. So yes, the stress is there. We are worried about where will they be. Some of the things that we're hearing are kind of helping out what the Prime Minister Trudeau announced last week. Also, the fact that some flights, like the all inclusives, are being limited in terms of sales and all. I mean, that helps. That being said, um, just last week and more this week, I'm hearing of students whose parents have contacted the school saying, we're going away for a few weeks. Some are going for a month. Some are going for the rest of the year and coming back in the spring. So some people, this has not stopped them. Um, it is not my place to either agree or disagree with what they're doing with their own time. It's not my place to say, don't go. It's a family decision. But I mean, personally, if you ask me on a personal perspective, I'm not going to go tell them not to go. But I just feel like the, I mean, I don't know what the reasons are, but I mean, I'm guessing if you have a good reason behind having to up and leave in the middle of a pandemic, then you know that's what it is. But if you're going for, I don't know, like tourism, vacationing because it's low season, then I have issue with that. Especially since we're talking about taking away spring break, but we're allowing these extended vacations during the year. You know, and it's not the child's fault either. So, but it all comes back to judgment. So these kids who are going to go away with their parents when they come back after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, two, three, I don't know how many they're going to go away for. But once they come back, I'm hoping that they take their quarantine seriously, and I'm hoping that they, stay out of the schools until they're 100% sure that they won't be infecting anyone if they are carrying a virus. Um, but like I said, it's a stress that we've been having to deal with. And as soon as those letters started to come into the school saying that we're going away, the immediate reaction of the group of teachers that I'm with was, well, they better not touch spring break, because if we're allowing this, then you know, it makes no sense to say, well, no spring break, but if you can afford to go away and come back and quarantine and pay the 2,000 or whatever it is at your own cost, then it's not fair, for those who are staying here to not have a spring break.
Absolutely. And look, you've already said so much in a nutshell, and I know you got to go. But basically, that was my question to you. The fine line, the balance, the spring break is needed. That's what I understand from you. It is needed, but it's needed that basically everybody stays home and recharges and does nothing so that they can come back a little bit
Honestly,
better.
I have no problem with the kids playing in the snow. I don't have a problem with them making humongous snowmen and whatever it is that they want to do. Just try not to meet up with other people. Just just don't, like, just if you don't want to see an extension of, because and that's what I was talking about. If you don't want to see an extension, I was talking to some of my colleagues. I said, if people aren't careful lead in the weeks leading up to spring break, we're going to see an extension of the time away from school, and we're going to see like an extra, like a week added to spring break, where it's going to be like online teaching, and nobody wants to go to online teaching, not voluntarily. Okay, like no, none of the teachers do, because it's so much harder to get your students to actually engage. um Maybe in high school they're living something different. I don't know, I don't have that experience, but if people are not careful, we're going to find ourselves staying home longer and having to do online schooling again this year. We're gonna have to fall back into it, and that's not the ideal situation here. We've recently gotten a document from the Ministry of Education outlining the main things that we have to teach this year and what to focus on in order for us to catch up what happened last year and to prepare the kids for next year. So if we actually want to get through that, we need to limit how much we do of online schooling during the year. And the only way to do that is to stay home, to be careful what you do, who you see. If you have to go see people because of X reason, wear some protective gear, do something that will protect you from possibly carrying a virus and giving it to someone else.